All right, Jimmy, Ott Paul Stone talking some college basketball. This is the Saturday slate, so these lines are projected, and we like to qualify exactly up to or minus this much or plus this much. But usually, this deep in the season, we have a pretty good gauge of exactly what the lines are going to be. But when they start trickling those lines out on Friday afternoon, they start to get some immediate reaction. We know the volatility of these basketball lines will certainly alter sometimes. Paul, let's go to the ACC and let's talk about NC State. And NC State is 6-0 on the road in ACC play this year. How about that game in Dallas this week where there was they were at 8 point. They were losing by 8 points. The next thing you know, they're up 12. It was an incredible run in the middle of the second half where the Wolfpack hit 10 consecutive shots from the field. NC State does sits at in a low point was a loss as a 14.5 point favorite at home against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. They're 5-0 since then. 4 of those 5 are on the road. So they played the majority of their conference games on the road. Now they come back home against Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech has been pretty good this year. This is an early tip on the CW at noon Eastern. Paul, Virginia Tech catching a projected 10.5 against the Wolfpack.
Yeah, NC State, as you mentioned, clearly beginning to hit its stride under first-year head coach Will Wade. You mentioned the Wolfpack's 6 victories in ACC play after the 84-83 victory at SMU on Tuesday night. This game, however, going to be held in the friendly confines there in Raleigh, North Carolina, as NC State hosting a Virginia Tech team that has split its 10 ACC games to date, but remains firmly in the NCAA tournament conversation. Looking at Joe Lunardi's latest version of bracketology, which was released 2 days ago on Tuesday as we record, Lunardi has Virginia Tech as the first team out of the NCAA tournament. And I think it's clear, to ultimately earn a ticket to the big dance, Virginia Tech, they're going to have to pull an upset or two. I don't think there's any question about that. And if they were to beat NC State as perhaps a double-digit underdog or close to a double-digit underdog anyway, that would certainly bolster their resume. Their most notable win of the year so far for Virginia Tech, a 95-85 triple overtime victory over then 21st ranked Virginia back on December 31st. But that game was at home there in Blacksburg. Road wins, they don't really have any big-time road wins. They did win at both South Carolina and Syracuse, but nothing of great substance. Virginia Tech, it's getting down to it's a sense of urgency if they're going to make the tournament. They have 8 regular season wins remaining. They've dropped 2 of their last 3. So I just expect a big-time victory, maybe not a big-time victory, I should say a big-time effort out of the Hokies against North Carolina State on Saturday. Might not win, but I think they're going to get, again, 10 or 10.5 points here. I'll take Virginia Tech up to plus 9.5 over North Carolina State. I think they're going to keep this one close against the Wolfpack.
Yeah, I would tend to agree as well. Joe Lunardi's latest bracketology has the Hokies at the first 4 outs. So they're right there. They're clearly on the bubble right now and can use another one of those quality wins. So, again, and 10.5, a lot of points projected in Raleigh, that early tip on a Saturday. Let's don't forget our friends at Bet Rivers. Get a $10 bonus bet to use on college basketball with a special giveaway from Bet Rivers and College Sports Rush. Go to your Bet Rivers app and enter the bonus code CSR22 to get a $10 bonus bet to use on any college basketball game. The code again is CSR22 for College Sports Rush. CSR22. Offer ends on February 15th. You must be 21. Eligible players only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's go to the Big Ten. And Michigan State had won 7 in a row, but they've fallen a little bit of a skid here. That Friday night game lasts for a week, prime time against Michigan. Tight game, and then Michigan pulls away in East Lansing. And then they go to the Barn in Minnesota and lose a tight one there. So I think that Izzo will have his team's attention as they take on Illinois. Illinois, on the other hand, boy, Wagler, the freshman, that was a couple of Saturdays ago where 3 different freshmen scored 40 plus in college basketball. man, he can shoot. And he's an unassuming physical makeup, but man, he can flat out shoot. But I'm just not quite sure if the Illini is as good as this 12-game winning streak. Going to East Lansing, it's going to be a low number, maybe a picket, maybe 1.5, slight favorite for Sparty, but I like Izzo's team in a desperate situation. Maybe it didn't have the attention of the Minnesota Gophers, who were coming into that game on a lengthy losing streak. They will have the attention of the Illini coming into East Lansing. I'm taking Michigan State, projected to be -1.5, Paul.
Yeah, it's only the opening week of February, obviously, Jimmy, but Tom Izzo, known as Mr. March for his team's history of postseason success. So we're getting close. The 10th ranked Spartans, to me, they've shown flashes clearly of being a team that could make it all the way to the Final Four, which will be held in Indianapolis this April. But as you also mentioned, they're also riding that mini 2-game losing streak after losing at Minnesota last night, 76-73 as an 8.5-point road favorite. Tom Izzo, after that game, very critical of his star point guard, Jeremy Fears Jr., threatened to bench Fears in that Illinois game. I don't think that's going to happen. This is too big of a game, and that doesn't coincide with today's culture of intercollegiate athletics. But, we talk often about buying low and selling high in the sports betting marketplace. And Michigan State certainly qualifies in this spot against Illinois. This is an Illinois team playing very well, as you mentioned. They hadn't lost since before Christmas. They've won 12 games in a row, playing in some people's eyes as well as anybody in the country. But Sparty's up against the wall. They've got their backs to the wall. They've lost 2 in a row. Tom Izzo is going to have their full attention between now and Saturday. You've got to expect that Sparty is going to throw their best punch here against the Fighting Illini.
All right, let's move on to the SEC and go to Starkville, Mississippi. And the Arkansas Razorbacks on the road at the Hump to take on the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. And Chris Jan's team just not quite as strong as they've been the past couple of years. They went to the tournament the last 2 years. They're not going to the tournament this year. Arkansas, though, the biggest thing that jumps out at me, Paul, and I'm sure you'll expound upon this, but Arkansas is a 6.5. We're projected to be a 6.5-point favorite on the road, where they're 1-3 in conference play. It's a kind of a big number on the road here, even against a team that Mississippi State that's falling below their usual projections.
Yeah, at 11-11 on the season and 3-6 in league play, Mississippi State, to me, they underscore the incredible top to bottom balance of the Southeastern Conference. And as you also mentioned, barring a very hot stretch run that would probably have to include the SEC tournament title, the Bulldogs aren't going to make the the NCAA tournament this year, and certainly appear destined for a second division finish in the league. But that doesn't mean that Mississippi State is a pushover for their SEC brethren, and certainly not at Humphrey Coliseum, aka the Hump, where they're going to host 21st ranked Arkansas on Saturday. First of all, taking a look at this highly talented Arkansas team, we've talked about basically every podcast that we do, the plethora of highly talented true freshmen in this year's college basketball class. And Arkansas has one of the very best in 6'3" point guard Darius Acuff Jr., a Detroit native. He scored 74 points in his last 3 games, leads Arkansas in both scoring and assists, ranks among the SEC leaders in scoring and assists, 20.9 points per game, 6.2 assists. And he's a guy who is from Detroit, finished his high school career at IMG Academy. And not only does he average over 6 assists per game, but equally as important, he has a very nice assist to turnover ratio of more than 3-1. So takes care of the basketball, distributes it as well, and can score the basketball. So just a big time freshman for Arkansas. Arkansas 13-1 at home this year. Obviously, this game not at home, but they lost their first home game of the season this past Saturday to Kentucky, 85-77. But as one might expect, the Razorbacks, as you mentioned, a little more manageable for the opposition when they're on the road. I really can, when I look at this game, I really can see Mississippi State taking it into the final minutes. They have a score deluxe of their own in 6 foot guard Josh Hubbard. If you'll remember, Hubbard in Mississippi State's conference opener back in early January, he erupted for 38 points against Texas there in Austin. Mississippi State won that game on the road 101-98. But Hubbard's a guy who averages just a touch under 21 points a game. He could keep Mississippi State in this game. I'm looking for them to keep it close. I think Mississippi State's going to cover this number. We project it to be 6.5, and I'll take Mississippi State at 5.5 points or more to keep it close against the Hogs. So I'm taking the Dogs over the Hogs.
There you go, Dogs over Hogs. Talking about Josh Hubbard, the all-time scoring leader for the state of Mississippi, high school scoring, going to Madison High School out of the Jackson, Mississippi area. So he can fill it up from time to time. There's no doubt about that. Let's go to the ACC and the ACC and who's the ones that don't fit the most, who's the ones that we kind of, wait, that's right. Stanford and Cal are in the ACC. We're still sort of adjusting to that. So look at the ACC standings, and Clemson is 9-1. They got they're in Palo Alto on Wednesday night and won a tough, hard-fought game. They squeaked it out against the Cardinal, and now they'll stay in the Bay Area till Saturday and travel just across town to Berkeley. So Cal takes care of Georgia Tech on Wednesday night. So in this little spot, these little tricky West Coast spots, we're talking about the Big Ten. We have to go to the Pacific Northwest with Oregon and Washington. I have to go to the LA swing with UCLA and USC. It's hard to win both. In California, when they've had the second game against the road team, they're 2-0 in this spot where, again, Clemson's going to hang around and play their second game so far away from home. So 2-0 in this spot. Let's face it, Cal is considerably better than Stanford this year. Only 5-5 in the league, but they are better. And the thing about it, their first four out, they're right there on the bubble. Clemson's comfortably in. But this is a tough spot and also probably going to get points at home. So you look at the standings, 9-1, 5-5, but on the road in this spot, give me the Golden Bears plus 1.5. It might be a tad more than that, but we're going to project about 1.5. I could take it as a pick as well, but taking the Cal Golden Bears at home in this spot that's been profitable against the ACC team coming from the other coast.
Yeah, I tell you, the phrase "go west, young man," I think it was originally coined maybe back in the mid-19th century, but it certainly applies in today's landscape of intercollegiate athletics, especially in the Atlantic Coast and the Big Ten conferences. And if you flip it, sometimes it's reversed to "go east, young man." And I think in both cases, whatever direction of travel we're talking, it has been difficult and problematic for the visiting team. There can be value, I think, in backing the home team in these types of spots. And you kind of echoed exactly the points I was going to make. It's especially favorable, I think, to take a closer look at the home team when that team is getting points, when the visitor is playing their second game of a mini little road trip, and when the visitor won the first game of those two games. And we have all three of those components in play here. Obviously, since Clemson earned that hard-fought 66-64 victory over Stanford in Palo Alto on Wednesday night. So this is I think it sets up situationally really well for Cal. 3 weeks ago, Cal upset North Carolina, 84-78 as a 6.5-point home underdog on their home floor. For me, it would be dog or nothing as well. I think this is a tough road to hoe for the Clemson Tigers on the West Coast.
All right, let's get to your picks and get back to the SEC and look at the Texas Longhorns. Texas 5-5 in SEC play. Ole Miss 3-9, and Ole Miss, again, we've talked about them a lot as far as being one of the disappointments in college basketball this year. Had Texas Tech on the road. Michigan State on the ropes in the Sweet 16. The SEC got 4 of the Elite 8 last year. Should have had 6 of the 8, where Arkansas blew that lead to Texas Tech and Ole Miss blew that lead to Michigan State in the Sweet 16. But anyway, Chris Beard, I mean, he's had a little bit of a bumpy path to Oxford, but still, he can flat out coach. And just wondered how frustrating it is. He got to a point where, I mean, he lost it at Thompson Bowling in Knoxville during the week. I mean, he got ejected in the game, but now he goes back to his former employer, the University of Texas Longhorns, and the unceremonious departure there. So, and that was a kind of a poach, and you wonder if Cody Kimball was as active as he was these days a few years ago, if he'd allowed the Longhorns to come in, just cherry pick their coach, who was really good. And man, an overtime, just so close to win it all. And when Virginia came back and beat them in overtime in that championship game a few years ago. Bier can coach, but something is missing for this team on paper is not translating to what it is. But then it's an interesting spot here. Going back to his former employer, Paul, Texas were projected to be about a 9.5-point favorite over the Rebels of Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think in sports, some teams clearly they either play up to their level of competition or down to their level of competition. And as sports bettors, this is something that merits our full consideration, since these type of teams can have a dramatic impact on our bottom line, if you will, for better or for worse. And Texas certainly qualifies as one of those teams this year in college basketball. On one hand, they have demonstrated that they can go toe-to-toe with the elite of the Southeastern Conference. But on the other, they have shown the ability to struggle against second division teams in the league. I mentioned earlier their loss to Mississippi State at home in Austin in the conference opener. They were 8.5-point favorite in that game on January 3rd, lost in overtime to the Bulldogs. And then their most recent game on Tuesday night, they struggled against South Carolina, ultimately disposed of the Gamecocks 84-75, got the victory, but didn't get the cover. They were favored by 13.5 over the Gamecocks. That's the South Carolina team that's only now 2-8 on the season in SEC play. And now coming to Austin is another second division SEC team this year in Ole Miss. And as you mentioned, it's going to be an interesting return. They're guided by third-year head coach Chris Beard, obviously the former University of Texas coach who was fired for cause 3 years ago by the University of Texas following his arrest on a domestic violence charge, which was later dismissed by the Travis County District Attorney's Office, but leaves Austin obviously under not the best of situations, and goes to Ole Miss. Ole Miss coming off that 84-66 loss at Tennessee, and Beard was, with about 6 minutes to go, I think he was equally upset with the officiating and his team's level of play, and he just went berserk and roamed around for a while. It was pretty good humor. His assistant coach kept him in check the best he could, but I think he's going to have his team's full attention. Again, it's going to be one of these games where I think you're going to get a little bit more of Ole Miss's collective team psyche. If they have anything in the tank, I think they're going to bring it to Austin, and to kind of underscore or demonstrate Texas is playing to their level of competition this year in college basketball. In the Longhorns' last 17 games, the underdog, whether it be Texas or their opposition, the underdog in their last 17 games, 12-5 against the spread. I think Ole Miss is going to make that 13-5 against the spread. I look for Ole Miss to keep it close. We project the line to be 9.5. I'll take Ole Miss plus 8.5 or better over the Longhorns in Austin.
All right, let's stay in the SEC. One of my picks, and let's go to Baton Rouge and talk about the Georgia Bulldogs coming into play at LSU. First of all, LSU's, it has been a pitiful situation. Matt McMahon is probably going to be let go at the end of the year and is going to finish as the lowest conference winning percentage of any sport for any coach. It's pretty bad. So anyway, they get 0 in my book, and still some metrics are giving them points for home court advantage. That doesn't exist. Georgia, on the other hand, was really out to a fine start. We talked about their pace of play. They were once the highest scoring team in the country. They're number 2 now because they had 11-man rotation, and Coach Mike White was adapting to his roster. It's what the better coaches do. But now they're on a 3-game losing streak, and they're hungry for a win. They still have a cushion to get into the tournament, but they can't afford a loss here. So, they and LSU at home, we talk about no home court advantage as 7.5, 8.5 point favorites. They lose by double digits at home in the Maravich Assembly Center to teams like South Carolina and Mississippi State. Georgia, clearly the better team. The other thing is entering conference play, although LSU had a very weak non conference schedule, the assist leader in the conference, Dan Thomas, is expected to be out for the remainder of the season. He certainly won't be playing in this game on Saturday. Georgia, clearly the better team here. So I'll pick them. It's unbelievable how some of the metrics still have them ranked as high as they do, whether it's net, whether it's Ken Palm. It is unreal. So they just have them too high. Maybe the offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, I don't know. But Georgia, way better than LSU. LSU's far from a tournament team. The Bulldogs on the road, where big deal. They're playing on the road. It's when you're booing your team going to the locker room at halftime, that might be more of a negative home court advantage than a positive. Give me Georgia over LSU at a projected to be a pick 'em. I would get on this early because I just don't see where LSU is going to get a whole lot of public support.
Yeah, I'm not sure the line reflects, Thomas's absence here. Georgia, first of all, talking about them, their stock has clearly dipped dramatically over the past month, and that might be putting it mildly. You look back to January 3rd, they defeat Auburn in overtime in Athens, 104-100. They're 13-1 overall. 2 days later, they're ranked number 18 in the AP poll, which is their highest ranking in the past 23 years, since way back in year 2003. But since that overtime victory over Auburn, Georgia's kind of come back to earth a little. They've lost 5 of their last 8 games. In their most recent outing, they fell at home to that up-and-coming Texas A&M squad. I think A&M really a team to watch, not only in the SEC, but on the national scene as we get closer to tournament time. But A&M defeated the Dogs 92-77. And now with a week between games, Georgia travels to Baton Rouge. They face an LSU team coming off an overtime victory at South Carolina that's also had a week off. But that's a team, again, that's only won 2 SEC games all season. Dan Thomas, clearly their team leader. And without him, they're not a very good Power 4 basketball team, to put it mildly. And we're always talking about, again, buying low and selling high and trying to get value and that sort of thing. If this game was played a month ago, Georgia, and I'm just saying this off the top of my head, they'd probably be about a 5-point or so favorite, I would think. But now we're going to get, probably perhaps as a real small favorite and maybe even pick them. So I think there's some value here with Georgia, as you, clearly stated your opinion. LSU seems to be a team, going nowhere fast, and now without their team leader.
I'd challenge someone to tell me another team that is a distant third in attendance in their own building of the 365 Division I basketball schools. Maybe Nebraska back in the day, with their volleyball team, and maybe Oklahoma, even with their gymnastics teams, recently. But they're getting about, 1,500 actual attendance, where they're getting close to 10 times that for gymnastics and women's basketball. $200 for nosebleed for the LSU South Carolina women's game just around the corner. So anyway, maybe they should maybe some men should hire Kim Mulkey. We'll see. We talked about Georgia being the number 1 scoring team for a while in college basketball this year. Well, who passed them up? That would be one of the only 2 remaining undefeated teams in college basketball this year. That's the Red Hawks of Miami, Ohio from the MAC. And so you think from a mid-major who is undefeated that they're just trouncing the opposition. That is farthest from the truth. Their last 4 out of 5 games, here's what they've done. They've won a couple in overtime. 3 of those 4 in overtime, and another one by 2 points. And 2 of them were actually dogs on the road here. They don't even have the highest power rating in their league. So, but they are number 1 in scoring at 92.8 points a game. Their pace of play, though, is only 49th. So what is it? They shoot the threes very well. They're top 10 in 3-point percentage. So, but somebody just kind of, you play with fire long enough, you're gonna get burned. And it sure seems like these 50-50 games are all falling Miami, Ohio's way. Now they go on the road to Huntington, West Virginia to take on the Marshall Thundering Herd. It's going to be another short number here. Team that's 23-0, only laying 2.5 points. Paul, you like the dog here?
Yeah, I tell you, a person probably would have to be, Jimmy, an ardent college basketball fan to know that the second round of the Sun Belt MAC Challenge is this Saturday, February 7th, and this is one of those games. There'll be 13 games on Saturday, pitting teams from the Sun Belt traveling, or from the Sun Belt hosting rather teams from the MAC. They actually had the first round of this challenge back on the opening day of the college basketball season on November 3rd, and the MAC teams hosted those 13 games. The MAC off to a 9-4 challenge lead in the challenge for those keeping score at home. Oddly enough, you kind of alluded to this, but Troy is going to host Akron on Saturday in a game that not only matches the reigning conference champions in those two leagues, but a game matching the teams in those conferences with the highest net rankings. You would think by virtue of their undefeated record, just off the top of your head, that Miami of Ohio would hold that distinction in the MAC. But actually, the team, again, with the highest net ranking in the MAC is Akron. That's a good basketball team, Akron, at 19-4. They're playing good basketball. But again, Miami of Ohio, 23-0, attracting most of the attention currently directed towards the MAC. They are ranked 23rd in the most recent AP poll. As you mentioned, one of two remaining undefeated teams in college basketball, along with top-ranked Arizona. But with 8 games to go, like you're talking about playing with fire. With 8 games to go, I don't see Miami of Ohio getting to the regular season finish line, unblemished or unscathed. They're just playing too many close games. In their last 5 games, 2 of those have gone to overtime, and 2 other games have been decided by 2 points. So they're just, getting by the skin of their teeth. This undefeated record, I just think it's a burden to bear. And in some cases, it might be like an albatross. And oftentimes, probably too much. My wife gets on to me for I say the same things over and over, and she says you just beat a dead horse. But I loved it. One of our favorite college sports handicappers, Billy Shakespeare. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. I think Miami Ohio's head's kind of tilted to the side. I think that crown is just weighing them down. I think it could end on Saturday in Huntington, West Virginia. We project this line to be 2.5. Marshall's a pretty good basketball team. They're 11-2 at home after beating Southern Mississippi there in Huntington on Wednesday night. I'm expecting this one to go down to the wire, as many of their most recent games have for Miami of Ohio. Marshall might not win it, but I think they can keep it very, very close and perhaps win it. But I like Marshall, and I'll take them up to plus 2.5. We're projecting, or better, over Miami of Ohio.
It's interesting, and usually a rule of thumb for the committee. And listen, we talked to many committee members over the years, and they love the metrics. It used to be the RPI, now it's the NET, and they use it a lot, and they value it heavily. The updated NET, even being 23-0, is still in the 50s. Miami, Ohio is actually nudged just ahead of Akron, 52-54 in that. But I mean, it tells you how close they are to, if they lose one and then lose in the conference tournament. They lose to, still not, had a ton of cushion with all the games that they've pulled out, all these close games, and, pretty quality opposition, man. Last 4 out of 5 or 50-50 games. They've won all of them, and they're still not safely in to the NCAA tournament. So anyway, but they have been fun to watch, and right at 40%, just I think 39.8% as a team from 3-point range. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott. Look, great card of college basketball this Saturday. We're going to do it all the way through the Final Four this year. Good luck to you. We appreciate it. College Sports Rush YouTube channel. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott, brought to you by our friends at Bet Rivers.